I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll tell you now, no one's ever gotten this answer right. I've never met anyone who's answered this right before I told them the answer. But having said that, I'll ask you, maybe you'll be the first to get it correct. Who was the first people that possessed what we currently call Israel and Palestine? Who was the first people to possess the land? Now, a lot of you are going to answer and say it was the Israelis or the Canaanites. Those seem to be the top two answers that I get over and over again when I ask that question. Who was the first people to possess the land? Now, since I've already told you no one's ever gotten it right, and those are the top two answers, then you know that the answer is not the Canaanites and the answer is not the Israelis. So, for those of you who did not get that correct, I'm going to give you one more chance to answer the question or think about what's the answer to the question. Who was the first people to possess the land that's currently called Israel and Palestine? And I'm going to give you the answer before you have a chance to Google it. The answer is the Natufians. Now, the Natufians were around during a Paleolithic period, which is the Old Stone Age period. They occupied the land between 11,000 BC and 15,000 BC. Now, you're probably asking yourself, the Old Stone Age period, what was going on during that time? Well, that's when the woolly mammoth was still amongst us. That's when the Neanderthals were still around. That during that period is when people still lived in caves and had cave drawings. It's what we call the caveman. That's the period when Natufians lived in what we currently call Israel and Palestine. Now, they were hunter-gatherer people, and they are actually believed to have been the first sedentary hunter-gatherers in the world. Now, what's meant by sedentary is, although they were hunting and gathering and moving around, they built permanent structures that they routinely came back to as they were hunting and gathering. Now, the Natufians lived on this land for thousands of years, and eventually they became an agricultural society. Some of the Natufian settlements actually was used to build the very first, well, what's believed to be the very first city in the world, which is Jericho, a city that a lot of you will have heard about before. Now, the Natufians lived on that land, like I said, until the agricultural revolution started to happen across the world and in the Levant region as well. And different people started moving into the area that's currently known as Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Palestine. And eventually, that more agricultural, sedentary lifestyle, all those people started to blend and integrate. And the Natufians eventually were no longer the dominant members of society. Another group did, and that group we'll talk about next week. So for this week, I just wanted to keep it simple and go over who was the very first people to possess the land that is currently Israel and Palestine. The Fenians were the first people to possess the land that's currently Israel, Palestine. They were there about 11,000 through 15,000 BC, and they just integrated with different cultures and groups of people that moved into the area as time went by. So next week, we're going to talk about the next group of people who became the dominant group of society after the Natufians.